Hey everyone, welcome back to Vocal Arts. I'm here with Mark Garrett, and I'm going to let Mark introduce himself and let you guys know a little bit about what he's up to these days.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, my name is Mark Garrett. I am probably best known on the internet as the one of the two faces of Kardavox Academy, which is a YouTube channel where we focus on vocal education, mostly extreme harsh metal vocalization. And I'm also the lead singer slash screamer in a band called Kardashev. We just released an album about a month ago on Metal Blade Records called Alanea, and that's the elevator pitch. That's the quick.
That was perfect.
Thanks.
It's like, have you done that 1,000 times?
I've done it a couple. I don't know about 1,000, but I've done it a couple. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Happy to be here, man.
Well, let's get into YouTube. I would love to hear like how you actually got your foot in the door of YouTube.
Yeah, sure. So, essentially, you know, I had been working a normal job, you know, like a desk job. I was actually working for PayPal at the time, and no surprise, I didn't really like working for big corporations. I didn't really like working for places that could tell me no if I said, "Hey, I'm going, you know, to visit my family." They're like, "We don't think," and it's like, "Excuse me, no, I'm telling you," you know what I mean? And so I had seen people starting to put up harsh vocal education content, and I thought, well, I could do that. So eventually, you know, the pandemic hit, and obviously I'm not saying like that was a good thing, but there were a lot of people at home, you know, watching YouTube, a lot of people being like, you know what, I'm going to pick up that hobby I've been putting off. And, you know, it was a little bit of a slow burn, but I, you know, kind of did the right thing at the right time. The first like really reaction video I did was for a band called Cattle Decapitation. And it was like my third video I did on the channel, and it exploded. It got like 65,000 views in a very short period of time. And I just remember being like, what? And so, you know, as you know, when you find something that works in content creation, you do it a lot. And that's kind of, you know, I've had a lot of help along the way. It's not been an entirely solo journey, but that's kind of how it all began.
Man, yeah, I totally feel you on when you first like accept the universe offer to do the analysis videos, and then something pops off. I will never forget the first one I did. The analytics just went berserk in the first 24 hours because I'd just been making covers before that. I was like, oh, okay, so I was putting this off for like a year, people telling me I should do it, and now I'm going to start doing it all the time.
Yeah, and you know, you have a really good spot because I mean it's still quite popular, but I can't remember exactly how long ago what it was. But if you were, you know, a well-trained, super talented singer with a like nice bass register, and you could sing stuff that sounded sort of like a shanty, or which, you know, that's not the entirety of what you've done, but you've done stuff like that, and it was like a lot of it is having all the talent, having all the skill, but also the right time. And the
shanty craze was an absurd thing, and I wasn't right in the middle of it. A lot of my friends were right in the middle of it. They were the guys that, you know, the clips of them were playing on the Colbert Show, and they're like, wow, this is really kind of going insane. And I was kind of on the fringe because I never really got into TikTok, so I was kind of on the fringe of that. But the sea shanties were huge, and there were a bunch of groups that were formed from that, and I did get to do a lot of analysis videos, and then later did like stairwell cover stuff for videos that went really well.
Well, I remember. So I actually had seen. I think I told you about this because we met at that creator event. And I think I told you this, but I don't remember. I had seen a couple of your videos in my recommended, and I feel like I remember. This is going back, so if I don't remember it perfectly, I'm like looking it up because I'm like, oh god, I don't want to look.
I was like, what's he doing over there? He's digging for something.
Yeah, I was like, so I remember. I think it was The Hobbit. You did the Far Under the
Misty Mountains, yeah.
And it looked like, was it Sedona? And it was you and another guy.
Oh, me and Bobby.
Might have been Bobby. I mean, I can barely remember 3 days ago. You're asking me to remember to go like maybe a couple years back, but I remember that popped up on my recommended YouTube recommended.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah. So at the creator event, I was like, yeah. I think I've seen this guy.
Yeah. There you go.
So
I know it's funny what you see, and your brain's like, I know that something about that person from somewhere. Like, where have I doom scrolled through it? You know?
Yeah. Late night recommended, but I find some of my best stuff there. I find some YouTube is weird.
There's good stuff to be found. I actually, to be honest, I am very good at not doom scrolling.
Really?
I'm very, very good at getting in and out of the apps, and I'm quite proud of it.
Dang. Yeah, I am not. I am not. I envy you. I envy you that. I will tell myself I'm going to bed, and then I'm on Reddit or I'm on TikTok or I'm on YouTube for far too long. And it's
in the weeds.
In the weeds, and then you kind of feel like you haven't left work. It's time to go to bed, but you feel like you just teleported from the office to your bedroom, and I gotta stop. I gotta learn. I gotta take some notes from you, man, because it's not useful for me at all.
I'll give you my playbook on how to do it, how to detach from the doom scroll. So how did you find your kind of niche on YouTube, getting into the extreme vocals? That's for sure what you're known best for.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of an interesting thing. I guess maybe not super interesting, but so I had been doing extreme metal vocals. Extreme vocalization is kind of what it's been starting to get called over the past maybe year or two. It's not how old the term is, but it's kind of rising in popularity, especially with the Charismatic Voice and Will Ramos doing their thing, and that's the term that they tend to use. But I'd been doing that at that point for maybe 10-ish years. I don't remember exactly when I started. I've been screaming for like 16 to 17 years-ish, right?
Wow.
And so that paired with the fact that I worked on my undergrad. I didn't finish it because I got super sick, but I worked on an undergrad in speech therapy. I had decent understanding of, not perfect. I had to crack open some of the textbooks and, go on to JSTOR and look up the research papers and things. I had to refresh my memory a little bit. But I had that foundation of understanding. And it just kind of seemed like a good idea. I remember, my wife and I, we weren't married at the time. We were living in this little apartment, taking our dog for a walk. And I was like, there are other people on YouTube doing this. I think I could do it too. I don't know how big it would be. I don't know, if I'd be bigger or better than anybody else, but maybe I could make just enough money for us to get by. And, I don't have to, work at a big corporation. And she was incredibly supportive. And, I sort of found that I had a knack for teaching. I sort of found that I had an ability to explain things in a way that people found both informative and entertaining, and satisfying in a way, because I am an inherently very long-winded person. And I love to over-explain, and I love to get extremely detailed, sometimes to the detriment of what I'm trying to say. So in the comments on YouTube, I was seeing people being like, every once in a while you get the comment of somebody being like, shut up, but it's not that it's really not that common. Actually. I like to be cheeky about it in my videos sometimes and be like, if you want the commentary free version, you can download my app called Spotify. But really, that's just me having fun, throwing jabs. The vast majority of people are super cool. So, I love ideas. I love explaining things. I love going into detail. But, most people in real life don't really like you to go on that long. But in the comments on YouTube, people were being like, I love how long you pause and explain. And I was like, oh, man, you mean y'all want me to rant and ramble? I got you. I can do that. You know what I mean?
100%.
And it's really cool when you see, I'm sure you've experienced this, when you see people not only being accepting, but exciting about or excited about you, right? Or the part of you that they get to see. I think you used a term, elevated authenticity, once, that I really liked.
Augmented authenticity, yes.
That's what it was. Augmented authenticity. And so it's as much of you as they get to see, but it is a nice feeling when you're like, oh, this part of me that doesn't usually work at dinner parties works really well here.
Yeah.
It's satisfying.
Getting deep into vocal technique and audio, and I do a lot of talk about audio engineering as well, and mixing and stuff like that. And it's great. You do always get the comment of I got a great one yesterday. It was It was on a video of mine that has like 600,000 views, an analysis video. And this guy goes, just shut the hell up. No one wants to hear you talk. And I'm like, did he watch it from a vacuum? This is a 35-minute video with 500,000 views on it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's always so crazy to me. And they say it on those ones. Like
you're just not paying attention. You just don't get it, do you?
No. And sometimes those comments get under my skin, but not as much as there are still some comments that do bother me. I'm not going to pretend like I've got iron skin, but when I get comments like that, I always do kind of chuckle, because I'm like, homie, this has 300,000 views. What do you mean nobody wants to hear me? Apparently, clearly a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And also you can look elsewhere in the comment section and see most of the comments are encouraging and thanks so much for taking the time to explain. No one else does it like this. Yet still, there's something you just gotta say it, don't you? You just gotta hop in there and say your piece like it's the only opinion in the world. It's great stuff.
I wonder sometimes, and maybe you have some thoughts on this, because clearly you've got your own negative comments as well, or directed towards you. I always wonder why people say that, because let's say I walked into a coffee shop, right? And everybody there was like, this coffee shop is awesome. We love it. And I wasn't feeling it. I would be aware of a few things. Number one, nobody's there for me. They're there for the coffee. Number two, maybe I'm missing something. So the people walk into these comments and they're just like, me no like. And it's like, well, that's fine. But when you say stuff that's patently untrue, I had a guy one time, we ended up having a great conversation. But I had a guy one time throw around a ton of these accusations about misinformation in my videos. And I said to him, I'm like, well, homie, 5 years and almost 500 videos, probably, yeah. I probably have said something stupid before, but can you hit me with a timestamp on a video? And he was like, well, I don't remember you actually saying that. And I was like, what do you mean? What? You don't remember me actually saying it, but you're saying I said, what are you talking So excellent. It's goofy times. It's goofy times, man.
Excellent stuff. So in your videos, when you're doing analysis, are you really zoning in purely on the harsh vocals, or do you go away from that at all and talk about like I do, just for example, of the mixing or other things like that? Are you just like, I'm gonna get deep on the harsh vocals and that's it? I try to stick mostly to the harsh vocalization or the singing, right? And the reason for that is because, straightforward, just to be honest, I don't think this is any surprise, that's what I'm trying to sell. I'm trying to be authentic. I'm not trying to be misleading. I'm trying to give real good information. But my ultimate goal with my videos is for people to book lessons, to buy courses, and to have safer, healthier vocals. So I focus very much on the task at hand, which is elevating doing what I can to elevate my little corner, my little nub of the extreme vocalization landscape, and also to pay my bills. Sure. I had somebody one time be like, you're just in this for no money. And I was like, of course. What, you think I would spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week for free? But I do, what I will. And another reason for that is I don't know a lot about the production side of things. I've only recently, and when I say recently, I mean in the past 2 months, started producing my own voice, because traditionally Nico, the guitarist in Kardashev, did most of the preliminary production just to get an idea, and he was pretty good at, I think he was pretty good at it. And then we would send it off and get the album mixed and mastered by usually this guy who runs a studio called Sound Layer in Tennessee. Recently we got it done, I think he's in California, a guy named Zach Oren. But he met a German girl, fell in love with her, got married to her, and moved to Germany. Okay. Which that seems like a very smart and logical thing to do. It's what you do.
Yeah, it's what you do. But then I also found myself being like, I guess I'm gonna have to do, because I'm not gonna track and comp out a bunch of vocals and then you know, it's so much easier to do when you're sitting there, you know, and then you listen back and you know, fiddle. So I have no idea what I'm doing. And so, you know, when I'm doing my videos, what I'll do is I'll comment on whether or not I like it, whether or not I enjoy it. Like, you know, Lorna Shore, they released a new song that was pretty good, but I thought the vocals were a little too quiet. You know, I thought in a lot of sections the vocals were buried. They were competing, you know. So I speak not as an authority on that stuff, but as somebody who's been in the room when other people who are authorities are talking about it, and I'm just listening, you know. So I've heard how they talk, and you know, like I could have a conversation about where things sit in a mix and like sonic real estate and things like this. But could I tell you what was happening or how to fix it? No, I'd be like, I don't know, EQ. Why do you say Mark EQ, Mark? Because that's the word I know.
Fix it in post. Fix it in post.
Exactly. Well, I do bark that out a lot, you know, because Nico would track me as well. He'd be like, hey, can you do that again? I'd be like, just
fix it in post.
And he's like, no, you got to redo it. And I'd be like, oh. But yeah, it's fun. So I do talk about that. I also have to keep myself focused too, because I find myself, especially like if it's a song I really love, because not every song I react to and analyze is something that I would listen to personally. Right. But lately there's this band Shadow of Intent that their songs I really like. And so there will be times where I pause it and I'm like, I don't know what happened with the vocals, because those drums, oof, you know, I was like, sorry, Ben. Ben's the vocalist. I was like, sorry, Ben. Your drummer took my attention. I do feel like it's broadened my scope, though. It's really helped me listen to multiple things and appreciate a much wider genre of music than I did, I think, when I started, which is kind of cool too.
So tell me about your teaching. What kind of stuff you offer, and what can you teach someone over there?
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, the majority of what I teach personally is false chord based screams. And, you know, before we start getting into the meat and potatoes of harsh extreme vocalization, I want to say that a lot of these terms I think are messy and not super accurate. Most people who come to me, you know, interested in their voice and learning how to do extreme vocalization, they either want to learn false chord because that's kind of what I've become known for on the internet, or like other more compressed styles of screams, or they don't really care what kind of scream they do. They just want to learn how to like expand their voice. And I think, you know, the way that I teach, I don't know if it's different, right? You know, I've spoken and networked with other vocalists or vocal coaches in my network. Like I've become, you know, kind of good friends with this guy. I think it's Screamistry, this guy out in Germany, and I've spoken with Justin Bonnets of Tala, David Benitez, and all these people. But the way I teach is also like very, very goal oriented, very progress focused, but also really loose. I often tell my students, like, hey, you know, if we're working on false chord screams and you do something that has a little epiglottis in there, I'm not going to be like, no, you messed up, if we both think it sounds cool. And because to me that, you know, I am someone who does a lot of like clean singing, which is kind of like a funny term, but like I do a lot of like high belting and more like contemporary and rock style stuff. And to be honest, you know, I enjoy it less. I do enjoy it, but I enjoy it less because compared to screaming, there are a lot of rules, right? There are a lot of, you shift your vowel a little bit, your note's going to sound goopy. You know, you know all about this, right? Like placement is imperative, and you know, airflow and support can decide. You look at the thing and then you're on pitch, but the tone is just dead. You know, whereas like you shift your resonance in a scream a little bit by accident, and it just sounds even grosser, and that's great. You know, so I really, you know, my students will show up and will use fry or false chord as a starting point, but I always tell them, like, in our lessons, I want you to think about this as like an open world game. Like, we're playing Skyrim, we're playing The Witcher, we're playing Grand Theft Auto, right? Yes, we have our starting point, but we're allowed to go down any alley, and the only rules are you have to think it sounds cool, and ideally the people that you're aiming for have to think it sounds cool, and it can't have any negative impacts on your voice. So if it sounds cool and it doesn't hurt both now and in the long term, you are doing it right. And that's often pretty wide and hard for my students to grab because they come from, well, I want like a bullet point list of everything I should be doing to know it's right. And I'm like, well, we could do that, but do you want to pigeonhole yourself? Or if you make a really cool noise, do you want to follow that and develop it that way? And I think I'll keep this part brief. I think another reason I teach that is because I noticed after a while, after about 3 years of teaching, that I was pumping out a lot of vocalists that sounded kind of similar. And if you listen, like I love metal. I think deathcore is awesome, but like if you put 5 deathcore vocalists next to each other, they can sound very samey because when we remove like the pitch from the scream or the pitch we can perceive, it's difficult to characterize the voice and make it more unique and individual. So I kind of realized, like, do I just want to be turning and burning generic deathcore vocalists, or do I want to make it maybe take a little more time, take a little bit more loose of an approach? And if I have 10 students and they're all amazing vocalists and they all sound different, I was like, I will get more satisfaction after the second one. And sure. it has made a much more satisfying type of lesson, but I am a lot less like, whoosh, that's not how it says to do it. You know what I mean?
The textbook on extreme vocals.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's been written yet. That's kind of
no, it hasn't.
Voice territory. And also, in a moment, if I forget, remind me. I want to get back to everything you've done with her and with that research project as well. Mm-hmm. But first, do you also teach non-false fold harsh vocals as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Sick. Yeah. I will teach people I'll teach people fry screams, although that's a very specific process. I'll teach people like more compressed, like arytenoidal and epiglottal screams. I'll teach people high screams. There are very few like distorted vocal styles I won't teach, but I will say when it starts to get less metal and more rock, there are times when I'll say like, hey, I'm so thankful that you thought I was the guy for you. This is a little less my specialty. And, you know, I'll divert them to, you know, a couple other coaches that I know that they also teach screaming, but they teach screaming it's much more singy. It's a lot more like, you know, glamorous versus I want to teach people how to sound like, you know, satanic clogged toilet pipes. Like that's what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I draw the line. And then I used to give like clean singing lessons, but I didn't really think it was that fun. And I also like, I can teach the fundamentals really well, like of clean singing, because that's really all I use. In my singing, I don't do anything very advanced, right? And I just kind of didn't find it satisfying because I would get a student and like the first part would be great, like breath support, bam. Oh, heck, they're singing on pitch. Oh, wow. They're in their mask. They're doing all these things. But then they'd be like, I'm ready to go farther. And I'd be like, that's where our journey ends. And I didn't find that very satisfying. And it kind of, after a while, felt like maybe it wasn't the most fair experience. So that's why we pulled in Verona, who's been teaching for like a long time. And she has, you know, touring experience, and like she has dedicated herself to the use of her clean singing voice the way I have dedicated myself to the use of my harsh voice. So it's you know, that's another place where I kind of draw the line. I don't really give clean singing lessons anymore. Rarely do I.
So if someone came to you and they wanted to learn how to sing in some styles like Chester or Emily, like from Linkin Park, is that something you would take, or you'd try to pass that off to someone else?
I would have a conversation with them about it. Sure. I would say like, okay, well, where is your singing voice now? If they've got an amazing singing voice already, they just need to throw some grit on it. Sure, I got you covered. But if they're like, and there's no shame in it, but if they're like, you know, happy birthday to you, then I'm gonna, you know, obviously I'm gonna try to slide them over to Verona first. And if they're not interested in that, I'll say, you need to learn to sing first, because it's just true. Like, you know, a lot of people, they want to sing, like you said, like Chester Bennington, but they want to focus only on the distortion. And I'm like,
God, that guy could sing.
He could sing.
Man, he could
That's
sing.
the thing. He was an amazing screamer, but he could sing. And it's like, you have to have a healthy vessel to put the distortion on. And so if you just want to start, if you're like, I want to scream like Chester Bennington, and you show up in the virtual classroom and all you want to talk about is grit, but you can't sing on pitch, your tone is always improperly placed and you're getting tension in your throat after, you know, 1 4-minute song, well, we can't really sing with grit on top of that, not responsibly, in my opinion. So there are some times where I'll turn students away because I don't feel comfortable carrying them through the journey that they want to be carried through. And I don't think it's worth either of our time, you know.
So you could teach me to do it.
Yes, I can teach you to do it. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, because I really want to be able to do it, and there are some moments in this piece I'm writing. Mm-hmm. There is a single fruit fly in my studio right now.
Dude, I see it.
You see me?
Yeah. Well, you're lucky. It's only one. My wife, she's super into plants, and she's very good with them. But every once in a while, like every couple years, we get those little gnats, and normally she's super on top of it. But every once in a while, there will be like 5 or 6 tiny little gnats in the house. You'll be just like standing in the kitchen making dinner. It's nice and quiet, and you'll hear. And you're
I know. But, I've been dealing with not an infestation, but enough to where I've had to set up traps and stuff for the fruit flies. I think I left some banana peels in my trash too long, and they're almost gone now. But there's one single one in the studio. Anyway, there's some moments in this Achilles piece I'm writing where I think some distortion and some grit, even to be able to like yell at the soldiers with some grit in it, would be so sick. So I might have to take some lessons from you.
Yeah, dude, we could absolutely talk about it. And it's like, you know, I will say this though. I will say this. It is very frequent, to the point where I expect it, that if I have somebody with like classical or opera training, they have a tough time. Whereas if I have somebody who's been learning like, you know, like if they've been learning like show tunes or rock, no grit, you know, the much more like versus a you know, they tend to have an easier time.
My vocal folds don't like that. It's really hard for me to get grit in my sound.
Yeah.
With true fold, I can make my false folds activate and do like growly kind of stuff.
Sure.
Nothing like what you can do, but the true folds, because I've trained for so long for them to just be 100% efficient.
Yeah.
It's like pure phonation for maximum resonance and ping to sing over a freaking orchestra. And they don't like doing the gritty stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, not to mention, I mean, the first thing is that we wouldn't be using your vocal cords to make any distortion. We wouldn't be doing that. But then the other thing is like, you know, these structures are so connected, so close, you know, like we would probably do some combination of like probably some false chord stuff, some bracing of the false chords to get some ariepiglottic, some arytenoidal vibration in there, although we wouldn't think about it in that way. Then the thing is like, oftentimes people will be like, well, I'm not using my vocal cords, should be the same. And it's like, well, I mean, between your vocal cords and your false folds, you've got this little pocket of air that actually has a lot to do with the turbulence. And when we are bracing over top of it and narrowing those tissues, right, the space above the vocal cords vibrates differently. So even though, sure, we're not gonna be getting distortion from the vocal cords themselves, it does, you know, you work so long getting that, like you said, that beautiful pingy tone that can cut through an orchestra. No microphone, right?
No microphone.
And now that changes. That feeling that you're so used to changes, and that is exactly why. A lot of my classical and opera, any non-microphone style of singing has a tough time, because there's a lot of, you know, you do build up some subglottal pressure. You do brace the tissues above. You do narrow a little bit. So
can it be done though, Mark? Can it be done?
Oh yeah.
With discipline.
Yeah.
So I've got that.
Yeah. With discipline, yeah. If you know the best thing, here's I'll tell you, there are 2 things I notice in a student that's going to be successful, right? A student that's going to go a really long way. The first is that they are naturally disciplined, right? For them, carving out time for screaming is not a hardship. It's just something that they do naturally. Like, you know, maybe they're playing video games and, you know, while they're in the Call of Duty lobby, they're like, you know, just making noise because it's just fun for them, right? And then number two, they don't give a, I don't know how cursing works on your show.
You can go for it, yeah.
Okay. Well, they don't give a shit about making a mistake. It does not like their response to like messing up an exercise is weird, and then they just try again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that second one, I think is the biggest indicator of success. And it's like, if when I have students who really get hung up on when they do it wrong, honestly, for me, that's when it gets difficult as a teacher, because like I have to try to convey to them that not only are mistakes not a big deal, they're incredibly useful. They're incredibly useful. I mean, think about like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Probably it happens to a lot of people. You're driving on the interstate. You've been driving, like you're on the I-5 going north. And you ever driven on the I-5?
I drove up to Aspen from here last summer. I don't know if that's the I-5, but it's a whole lot of nothing going like through rural Utah.
Yeah, not the I-5, but sounds about the same, right? And so you're tired. It's late at night, and you know you kind of doze a little bit. I will say I have done that before. Well, on those interstates, you have these slashes in the road that go, you know. Thank God for those.
Yep.
Because they make you go, oh, center out. I need to stop at the next gas station and grab a coffee, right? And I always tell my students that's what the mistakes are. The mistakes are those little striations on the side of the road. Incredibly useful. When we hit one, we should be very thankful. You know what I mean? And students who can either not care about making a mistake or see a mistake as a really useful thing, oh, they soar, dude. They excel. They really excel. And they'll ask me, they'll be like, I had one student ask me, they're like, oh, it must be nice not to make mistakes anymore. I was like, yeah, it's probably awesome. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, dude, I screw up all of, like, what are you talking about? like if you heard the raw stems from Kardashev songs, like not trimmed up, you'd hear, this is what it would sound like. It'd sound like this. God damn it. You know, I was like, the only time you need to be like as mistake free as possible is when you're performing live, I think. And so it is important to focus on reducing mistakes, but like, you know, it's metal, your voice cracks a little bit, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
and do you find these harsh vocals that you've been doing for so long are like very sustainable for you at this point? Like they really don't tire you out or anything like that?
It depends on the vocal.
Okay.
It depends on the vocal. So, you know, in harsh vocals, you know, we kind of think of, not just me, a lot of us think of like your main vocal and then like a texture or like an effect vocal, right? So the scream that I've been doing in here, just this really quiet, it's basically Cookie Monster, but without the vocal cords. Hey, Cookie Monster. That I could do.
Sick.
You know, I have done 7-8 hour recording days doing that and other vocal styles. And yeah, at the end of the day, my voice feels as normal as when I started.
Wow.
There are other screams that I could not do that long. Like I have this one really high scream. I'm not going to do it here because it's loud as hell. But that really requires me to narrow and clench and push really hard upwards. And is it going to cause me this is something that's, I think, really important to clarify. You know, oftentimes I think that, okay, I gotta take a second to make sure I don't go down a very convoluted road, but I think that I think that a large portion of the way that we talk about extreme vocalization is inherently inaccurate. And one of those inaccuracies is to say harsh vocalization is safe. But that is not to imply that the entire opposite is true, that harsh vocalization is unsafe. What it does mean is that different techniques require different amounts of different work from the body. And a really good example of this is, you know, I tell my students, imagine an Olympic deadlifter with perfect form. And they're like, okay, and I say their technique is perfect, can they just squat for 4 hours nonstop? And the student's like, no, they'd tear a muscle. And I'd be like, exactly. So is it the technique that's wrong, or the understanding of that technique in the context of what our body's capable of? So do we say that scream isn't safe, or do we build a context of understanding about how that scream interacts with our body? The second one is my opinion. So there are screams that if I did that super high scream for an entire show, I'd be wrecked, dude. I guarantee I would have pretty intense muscle strain in my throat, and then because those muscles got tired, my vocal cords would probably inadvertently start coming in, and they'd get puffy, and I'd probably sound like, instead of ooh, I'd probably sound like ooh, But if I understand what that vocal requires, and I say, hey, I only use this like 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 songs that are spread out strategically over the course of this set, then it's no issue.
Be all right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's talk about how you got connected with Elizabeth and TCV,
Sure.
and then how that leads into the research that you're a part of now, which is so cool.
Yeah. So I was initially introduced to Elizabeth. I don't remember who I spoke with first, to be honest with you, if it was Elizabeth or Kirk. But it was through a guy I was working with at the time. And he actually made that connection before I did. And he set up that connection. And, it was cool because, a lot of times, and I don't fault anyone for this, but a lot of times when you reach out and want to talk with other creators, it's very difficult to do because we are all hustling as hard as we can. And whether or not this is who we are inherently, our hustle time is valuable. And it's important, like for me, money's really important because I got to pay my mortgage. And so when somebody else has that same feeling, I don't necessarily fault them for that. But one thing I liked about Kirk and Elizabeth is they really were excited to give me guidance and help because they wanted to. They're both very goal-oriented, very success-focused people, but they are also very open and willing to, I won't say take you under your wing, but show you how to be independent, show you how to succeed on your own, and give you advice when asked. And I really enjoyed getting to know them, because that's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for somebody to push all the buttons for me and, but somebody to be like, hey, we've been doing this, we've been successful, here are some things you can try, your mileage may vary. And then eventually that just kind of turned into like us becoming friends. Me and my wife, we've gone down there to drink wine by the pool and hang out. Not a ton because they live down in Tucson. And another thing I really appreciated about them is there's a lot I appreciate about Kirk because in some ways he's very much like me. We even had a conversation about it once. Like we're both the type of people where, like, I have a buddy who lives in Colorado, and if he and I didn't talk for 5 months and he reached out to me, I would not do this. Hey man, yeah, good to hear from you. You kind of dropped off the face of the earth, man. What's been going on? Like, if somebody does that to me, that is a surefire way to end our friendship because, like, I'm almost 40. I got a life to live, and with Kirk, sometimes we may not talk for 3 months, but if I reach out to him and I'm just like, hey man, how's it been? Or hey, I had a quick question. It's not like, look who showed up again, so it's very easy to work with them, very, very fun to talk with them. And I like what they're doing, even though I'm glad that they're doing a lot of the work and I don't have to, because this study, it's a lot of work.
Big study.
Yeah, big study. And, really, one day Elizabeth just called me. She called me up. Like, I remember my wife and I don't remember when it was, but we were at this plant store. We were like called the Plant Stand. And I just it was like Elizabeth, and it's like Elizabeth TCV, and I was like, I haven't talked to you in a while. I was like, my first thought was like, uh-oh, is something wrong? And she's just like, we wanted to know if you wanted to be part of this vocal study, but I want to tell you, and I was like, I'm in. And she was like, well, I want to go over the procedures with you. And I was like, sure, but I'm just telling you I'm in.
Where do I sign?
Exactly. Yeah. And I was like, I literally was like, send over, I'll sign whatever you want. Cause I think it's really cool and interesting. And you know, it just kind of went from there. And in March, I went to the University of Utah and I met a bunch of amazing people. I met Dr. Amanda Stark. I met, well, the whole research team, right? Can't name everybody, of course, because I'm terrible with names. B, like that would take some time. But so many cool people, and did a bunch of tests and learned a bunch of things. And, you know, now just kind of waiting to see what they find from the research. But it was a crazy experience. It was a fun experience. And I'm really thankful. that, you know, I'm not the only person teaching this extreme metal vocal stuff. They could have chosen a lot of people. So the fact they chose me, I was very, very appreciative of that.
Yeah. Did you, what kinds of vocalization did you do for them under the testing?
You know, that's a really fascinating question, because, you know, it's interesting. They asked me to make a catalog of my sounds. And I was like, what? Because to me, like, once you get past the beginner's phase of screaming, where you have one or two tones, it becomes very fluid. It becomes very, like, I think this would be true of any metal vocalist who does a wider range of sounds. So this is going to sound maybe self-congratulatory, but I think this is true for any deathcore vocalist and a lot of death vocalists out there. But a catalog would be infinite, because we have so much freedom to move our tongue in any way we want, basically. To like, you know, we can take this, you know, we can take the same scream and we can squeeze down hard on it, or a little less, or is each gradient its own technique, you know? And you know, this may not be satisfying, but I kind of don't remember everything I did, because I was like, well, I'll just pick the most distinct ones, right? I'll pick the ones that, like, if I was to put them on like a big diagram, would be the most polar opposite. You know, they'd have somebody on the other side.
Yeah.
So I did like this low, like, you know, I did more of like the traditional, like higher stuff, and I'm doing it all really quietly now.
It's so cool.
But I remember it was a long list, and we had to eliminate stuff because we were running out of time. But it was a long list of all sorts of different sounds. And even then, with this crazy long list, you know, Spencer Sotelo from Periphery, he was in there making sounds I've never even made in my life. You know what I mean? And I'm just watching. I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. This dude walks in here and he's just like, oh yeah, Mark's making like hundreds of sounds. I wasn't hundreds, like dozens of sounds. I'm going to make some that aren't even on that list. It was like, holy cow, dude. Which I wasn't surprised, because you've heard Periphery and you've heard me. very, very opposite sounds. But it was a lot of fun. It was crazy, dude. It was crazy.
That's so cool. How were they capturing it? Did you do the tube or the snake camera, or was it all MRI or what?
Yeah, so they did laryngoscopy, which is the snake in the nose. They did MRI. Yeah, they did MRI. They did, you know, the needles. The needles,
right? The needles,
yeah. The EMG in my throat muscles. They did a lot of different things. And pretty much, you know, everything that they did in the video with Will Ramos, they did that with me as well. You know, because for science, you want to run everybody through as similar as possible, right? And it took days. It took days to do, but you know, that's partially because they were nice and they scheduled rest for us, because you know, it's interesting. Like I said, I've done 6-7 hour tracking days, which you track vocals, you know that's not 7 hours in front of the microphone. That's like 45 minutes, and then you step out and you fiddle with some knobs, and then you know, maybe an hour, and then you go eat lunch, and then you know, and then you know, played like 45-minute, hour-long sets before. But these days were very taxing, and I found that was because it was so sterile. You know, this is again something that's really fun about and you know, I'm not saying that this doesn't exist in the clean singing world, there are a lot of clean singers who are really beautifully messy with their voices. But if you're to compare like classical and opera, like these very trained, very like impressively accurate to this, right? I'll be honest, I get in front of the microphone, and part of this is just, how many years of experience I have. I don't exactly have. I know I'm going to do a low scream, but maybe it goes like, or maybe it goes, and I don't care. I don't care, right? But in here, I had, okay, Mark, do that, replicate it exactly 10 times for the sake of doing it. There's no music playing. And I was able to do that. I was able to replicate it 10 times, but it was just so different. It was such a different experience that I found myself getting maybe not physically tired, but very mentally tired.
Yeah.
Very mentally.
It wasn't, approaching it from the artistic side.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
opposite of that.
Yeah, very, very well said. Yeah, there was nothing artistic about it, and that's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So, but I will tell you that it kind of, we all track our voices just for fun. Like I got a bunch of instrumentals that I do like to put vocals on, but they're like released by other bands, so they're just for me on my computer. I can't release it as my own. That's like stealing. But I'll find instrumentals and write vocals on it just for fun. And I have found that experience has, I don't know if I would say improved my experience recording my own voice, but it has opened up a door for me where if I want that more pristine replication, I want very specific sounds and I want to do them, I can sort of shift into that mode if I need to. It's helped me have like another hat to put on, which has been it's expanded. It's like horizontally expanded my experience, and it's been a lot of fun because now, I can think it makes stacking vocals very interesting. Makes stacking vocals very interesting. So yeah, I took away a lot of really good stuff from it.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about your band.
I will.
Tell me all about your band.
So Kardashev, originally, all of us lived in Arizona, and we started, I think, 2009 or 2010.
Oh man, you've been around.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a little while, and our sound has changed a lot over time. But essentially, what we have always wanted to do was to write metal that was very, cathartic and beautiful and open, still aggressive, still dark, still nasty, but also with like the emotional impact of like shoegaze or post rock or things. And we didn't start out doing that exactly, but we've sort of found our way there. And it's been an interesting experience because, in many ways I'm very fortunate because we all generally get along very well, and we all tend to listen to the same thing. And so I think that has helped us create a sound that sounds very Kardashev. And the loose idea behind it is the name comes from a Russian theoretical physicist, Nikolai Kardashev. And he had this idea, because back when we started, sci-fi metal bands were all the rage. Metal bands with sci-fi themes, that's what people were doing. So that's what we did. And basically he had this theoretical way of measuring society's advancement through the way that they utilized energy. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I read those papers and understand them, but I will say it was cool, and we were putting mathematical equations in the lyrics of our demo, but that has since evolved into something fairly cool. So we have, across our albums, we have one main story that we have told from the very first release up until the most recent release, Alinea, and then some albums that step away from that. They're more self-contained. And that story has evolved and become interesting, and we have a small pocket of fans that follow it. And even in our most recent the most recent release, Alinea, is named after a fictional language that I made up. It originally was used in our album called The Almanac, and people loved it. And there are a couple people out there who are like, they know more about it than I do, and I made it. There's this one guy also out in Russia, and he'll it's been a while, but he'll message me and he'll be like, hey, I noticed a grammatical error in your lyrics, and I'll be like, holy shit, you're right. And I was like, well, language is dynamic, and and so this album,
it's a regional thing. It's a regional
thing, yeah. And he's like, but at the time this language is being spoken, aren't there only 2 speakers in existence? And I'm like,
shut up. It's colloquial.
It's colloquial, yeah. And so we really have leaned into that, and it's turned less like sci-fi for the sake of sci-fi, and like now it's a lot more about exploring questions and not providing answers, and doing it in a way that is hopefully a little bit painful for the listener, but also a little bit relieving for the listener. We're very focused on writing albums that are cathartic, like they hurt, but they hurt good.
Hurt good. I mean?
Yeah. They hurt good, exactly. Mm-hmm. And you feel like we wrote one song about it's called Snow Sleep, one of the songs that really picked up with a lot of people. And the story is about a child being abandoned out in the woods in the snow and dying. And it's a tough story, but we weren't writing it as like, oh, this is brutal, that's fine, by the way, to be clear. Like, bands that are out there writing brutal, like, I love that. So we're not doing this because we think we're above it or we want to change the narrative. It's just kind of what we found ourselves doing. But we wrote that song to help people get a sense of like healing. And so many people commented like, I listened to this song and I read the lyrics and I watched the video, and I'm taking tomorrow off and I'm just spending it with my son. And I was like, that's what we're trying to do.
That's it.
That's what we're trying to do. Or like, I realized, I haven't called my mom in a month. I listened to this album and I'm calling my mom right now. And I'm like,
that's huge. That's so cool.
That's what we want to do with a lot of our music, Yeah. That's what we want to do.
How many albums do you guys have now?
Full albums? I think
or EPs?
Only EPs. Yeah.
Big projects.
So how many? Yeah, maybe that's a good way to put it. How many projects? So I don't know. It's a great question. Let me think. We have. So it was Progression, Excipio. This is in release order. Progression, Excipio, Iota is a single, but it's like 8 or 9 minutes. And then we have Peripety, and then we have The Almanac, and then we have The Bearing of Shadows, and then we have Liminal Right, and then we have Alinea. So I believe 8 releases.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Every couple of years you put out something.
Yes, yeah, two-ish years we put something out, and it's so interesting to go back and listen to, because we really found, I think, that like the band we wanted to be when we released The Almanac. And you can hear like in our demo, there's this song called Tier 3, and it's like, oh, that sounds a little bit like Kardashev Today. And then we slowly found our way there. And I think a lot of that is, so much of that is Nico, our guitarist. Because we've, as bands do, we've had lineup changes. We've had a couple drummers. We're on our second bassist, but Nico has always been the person who really handles the rhythm section the most. And so when you listen to Kardashev, you're very much hearing a lot of his like musical journey, a lot of his growth as a musician. A lot of times people will be like, "Oh, Mark, how did you write that part?" And I'm like, "You think I First of all, thank you. I didn't write it. I show up last. I show up very dead last. I'll have input. I'll say like, oh, I love this riff, Nico, or hey, try this lead, or Sean, that fill sounds great, or something. But my job is dead last. And so it's really for me. Sometimes and I mean this in a good way, sometimes I feel like an observer in the band, because I get to watch Nico grow and write this amazing stuff, and all of them like come together and work. And I'm over here like, good job, guys!
Hey, go team!
And then they give me this beautiful song to put vocals over, and I'm like, dang, this is awesome. This song rocks. You know what I mean?
So
Yeah.
how about the songwriting? Is that mostly Nico?
It was for a long time. It was for a long time. There's a joke that I usually tell, but it is actually true, that our music got really good when I stopped micromanaging Nico and let him do his own thing. It's true. Like, it is factual that is the case. This album very much was a combination of Nico and our bassist Alex, who was also the bassist in a band called Holy Fawn. Great band, by the way. And so this album, Alinea, it's much more proggy than our recent releases. It's much more riffy. But it was also much more collaborative between Alex and Nico. They really wrote a ton of it side by side. And it's definitely more technical. But I think our previous release, Liminal Right, which was mostly Nico, is beautiful and powerful and impactful. And in many ways, between the two, maybe the one I prefer, I guess. But Alinea, right there on the wall.
Nice.
Alinea is, I think, more of a fun album, if that makes sense. It's got more of that, like, whereas Liminal Right is these big, huge post-rock inspired landscapes with some black metal and death metal influences on top of it. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to do a deep dive. All right.
Yeah,
couple quick things before we sign off.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So first of all, just like a TLDR of some quick tips, hot and dirty quick tips for people getting into harsh vocals.
Sure. Yeah. There are a lot, but I think the first one of the things that I would advise more than anything is, and this is almost low-hanging fruit advice, but it really is serious advice. At the beginning, the majority of your scream is not going to be built on thinking about your throat. It's going to be built on thinking about your breath. When we are creating harsh vocalization, we are balancing pressure. We're balancing air pressure. It's pressure under the vocal structure and pressure on top of, the diaphragm and the vocal structure. They're pushing against each other in a way. You can kind of think of it like that. And so if you are not doing the proper thing, that won't work very well. And then I will follow that up with saying, don't take it too seriously. Allow your voice to show you the kind of distortion it wants to make, because, I do deathcore style vocals on a band that is not deathcore in the smallest sense of the word. And so you don't I wish that a lot of new metal vocalists didn't limit themselves by genre, even if they want to be in a metalcore band. You don't have to force yourself to learn metalcore screams, whatever that even means. So, don't skimp on the breath work. Take those breath exercises seriously, but also have a lot of fun. Be loose. Play it like an open world game. If left looks interesting, go left. You don't have to force yourself down a path that's not working or that's not fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And lastly, Mark, where can people keep up with you?
Good question. So if you type in, thankfully the name Kardavox doesn't have a lot of competition because I made it up. It's just a combination of Kardashev and Vox. So voice of Kardashev. Okay,
I wondered because I noticed they had the same root in there.
Yeah, exactly. Kardashev voice is where I came up with that. So if you just type in Kardavox, you'll find me. You'll find Verona, our clean singing instructor, who also writes and releases music too, and she's great. So you can check that out. And then Kardashev, I would say go straight to Spotify. Because the vast majority of our career has been record label lists. So we don't have like this huge catalog of amazing music videos for you. We've got music videos. They're DIY.
Yes, sir.
We've got a couple that I'm proud of all of them, but like visually striking music videos, we've only got like 3. So I would say, head to Spotify, and I would actually advise, this is interesting. I don't know, maybe it's not interesting, but I would advise listening in reverse order. Because I think if someone's gonna listen to that much of us, maybe they'll listen to 2 songs. Which, if that's the case, hey, I appreciate those spins. But you know, a lot of people, I see this mistake made all the time in fandoms. Somebody's new to the fandom and they start at the beginning, and no surprise, they didn't like the thing that was made in 1982 with no quality of life and no accessibility, and so they think they hate the whole franchise. You know what I mean? If you start at the beginning, we're gonna sound like exactly like what we were, which was early 20s metal kids who didn't know exactly what their goal was. Which I'm very proud of that era, but it's certainly not where we are now. Right. So reverse order is what I suggest.
Amazing. Mark, thanks for coming on, dude. So great to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And we should think of something fun to, because I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your cool magnum opus. So let's figure out a way to get you on my channel, and I can grill you with questions, because there's tons of interesting stuff to talk about on your end.
Big in the fall. In the fall, we'll fire something up for sure. I'm off to Aspen for a couple months, and then I'm back I'll be back. I'll just be back.
Let's do it. I'm dead serious. Let's do it. I think that would be a ton of fun and great exposure for my audience. But yeah, thank you for.
And I'm serious about voice lessons too for harsh vocal stuff.
Dude, I will absolutely help you. I think it'd be great fun. Fun, and I've got time to fit you in. So
cool. Well, I'm glad your house is functioning again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood that it stays working. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it, and have fun in Aspen. And we'll talk soon, dude.
All right, brother. See you later.
Catch you later.
I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Mark Garrett of Kardavox Academy. If you did, you will surely enjoy this conversation with our friend and mutual collaborator, Elizabeth Jaroff of the Charismatic Voice. Go on. Pick it. It's waiting.